they are going to come and they are going to have killing on their mind. So, the element of fear is there. And what did Nehemiah do? He said, let's pack it up and go home. If you remember, there were some individuals that actually said that. They said it'd be better if we just went home. Let's pack it up. We tried our best. Let's pack it up and go home. It's too overwhelming. They don't want us here anyway, so let's just go home. Again, the character of Nehemiah was so strong. His love for God was so strong. His love for his people were so strong that we know that didn't happen. In fact, they came up with a plan, didn't they? They said, okay, we're going to split up in clans, and everybody get a trowel in one hand and get a weapon in the other hand. And when you're on the wall, I want you to work, but I also want you to be aware of what's going on. And if there is a battle on any part of the wall, we're going to sound a trumpet. And if you hear this trumpet, you're to put down your trowel and you're to run to that particular area and you are to defend that area. That's a pretty good plan, isn't it? Now, how would you feel if you were part of the military and you were told that you're going into a hostile environment, but we want you to dig a garden in that hostile environment? I want you to have a rake in one hand, and I want you to have your weapon in the other hand. And this is a requirement. You have to dig that garden in the midst of the army, in the midst of the enemy around you. Would that be a difficult thing to do? How good of a row would you plow if you knew the enemy was coming? Would you care about the straightness of the plow, of the field, or how many seeds you put down, or how many stones building the wall, if it was straight or not? Probably not. You'd always be looking over your shoulder. But I get the sense that because we've already seen the wall is halfway built. And just to tell you the end of the story, the wall is going to get built, but we're out in the middle of that now. They did a good job. They were focusing on doing the work of God. And that was building the temple, or that was building the wall around the temple. But they also had to be ready. Now, in our life today, we are surrounded by evil. Would y'all agree with that? Satan does not want us to do the work of God. Can we be so concerned about the evilness and about the things that are around us that we put up defenses that stop our work in the Lord? Is it possible that we could do that? In fact, would Satan even try to do that? To say, if I can just scare them enough for them to stop working, that's enough. If I can get in their lives and keep them from talking because of persecution or because of loss of friends or loss of income or loss of whatever it might be, if I can just scare them enough to get their defenses up so that they stop building their spiritual bodies, then that's enough. He uses that, doesn't he? And that's a tactic that he's using now too. But the people aren't falling for that. We see very clearly that they worked hard. We know that the last of chapter 4, they worked. Verse 23 says, so neither I nor my brothers nor my servants nor the men of the guard who followed me, none of us took off our clothes. Each kept his weapon at his right hand. So they had a mind to work. They were not going to let the enemy ridicule them, manipulate them, keep them from doing what God wanted them to do. Delmer? Yeah. Yeah, no kidding. And they had a leader that knew that. And he showed them that. And the people recognized that. And the people, that courage, it kind of fell over into the Israelites too. They became courageous. The attitude that Nehemiah had went over into the Israelite camp also. So they were continuing to do what they were to do. So the outside was coming in. It looked like that they had stood up against the outside. What usually happens if God's people are fortified against the outside? What will he start working on then? The inside, right. And we've already seen that, haven't we? In Haggai, we saw Satan working on the inside, convincing them that they couldn't do it, convincing them that they were big enough, convincing them that it wasn't time to build the Lord's house yet. We've seen all that, but now we haven't seen that in Nehemiah's time yet. But in chapter 5, we're going to see that. Now Satan's going to turn in the inside and try to stop the work from the inside. Let's start with verse 1 of chapter 5. Now there arose a great outcry of the people and of their wives against their Jewish brothers. For these were those who said, with our sons and our daughters we are many, so let us get grain that we may eat and keep alive. There were also those who said, we are mortgaging our fields, our vineyards, and our houses to get grain because of the famine. All right, now this is the first inclination we get of another problem. Not only the opposing nations are against him, but now there's a famine in the midst of all this. Now, has God used famines before in His teaching of His people? He has. So now this is another element added to this story that makes it even more difficult. There's a famine, and now they're in a foreign land. Well, it's their land, but they're coming from a number of years in captivity into a land of hostile enemy that wants to kill them. And now there's a famine. And now when they try to get food, their brothers and sisters are doing what to them? They're saying, if you want food, then you give me some of your land. You give me even some of your children so they can work for me. Give me some of what you have and I'll give you some food. Now, is that a business type atmosphere that we're looking at now? They're wanting to make money, right? And is it a perfect time to do that? What do they call that if there's a disaster and somebody hikes up the prices? Price gouging, yeah. Taking advantage of a bad situation. Now, it's one thing if a pagan nation's doing it, but who's doing it? The brothers and sisters. The Jewish people are doing it to one another. So, that's the cry. Verse 4. And there were those who said, we have borrowed money for the king's taxes on our fields and our vineyards. Now our flesh is as the flesh of our brothers, our children as their children. Yet they are forcing our sons and our daughters to be slaves. And some of our daughters have already been enslaved. But it is not in our power to help it. For other men have our fields and our vineyards. So, again, keep in mind the situation that these Israelites are in. They are trying to build a wall. They've got the trowel in one hand, they've got the weapon in the other hand. There's a threat of a battle. There's a famine. And now, after a hard day of being on the wall, they have to go home to a home that is half there. Maybe their son has been enslaved. On this particular situation, it says the daughter was enslaved because they couldn't pay the tax, so they said, you can use my daughter as your servant if you'll give me some money. Now, if you'll remember in Deuteronomy, there was a section that Moses told the children of Israel, you can do this, but every 7 years, you got to let them go. You got to let them go back to their homes, and everything has been paid for after 7 years. Well, now they're taking advantage of this now. This doesn't hold true. This is not anywhere near what Moses was talking about or Joshua was talking about when they gave this rule, or God was talking about when He gave this rule. They are taking advantage of this. So difficult times all around, the famine, the enemy, trying to do God's work. Now this is Nehemiah's response, verse 6. I was very angry when I heard their outcry and these words. I took counsel with myself, and I brought charges against the nobles and the officials, and I said to them, you are exchanging interests each from his brother. And I held a great assembly against them and said to them, we are, as far as we are able, have brought back our Jewish brothers who have been sold to the nations. But you even sell your brothers that they may be sold to us. They were silent and could not find a word to say. Again, the character of Nehemiah shines here, doesn't it? The leadership of Nehemiah shines here. The authority of Nehemiah shines here. Do y'all see that so far? Because now Nehemiah is getting in the pocketbooks of these people. Should they have known that they were oppressing their own brothers and sisters? Do you think they didn't know that? Sure, they knew it. They didn't care. In fact, that was making them money. They knew because they were oppressing, they were in that state. They were in that state of needing something. They took advantage of it. And now Nehemiah became angry. And he pulled everybody together. And he charged them with this crime. And the last part of verse 9, my translation says, they were silent and could not find a word to say. Anybody have anything else in that? This tells me they were convicted, right? Because they're going back and they're remembering probably what Deuteronomy said. They don't have a word to say. If anybody was ever convicted, and maybe you've seen this on the news, somebody hiked the gas price up or the grocery prices up, and the law goes there, what? Do they have any backing? Do they have any defense for raising that price? No. There's no defense at all, right? In fact, the tide of public opinion has changed so much when they see that and the law fines them for that, they don't have anything to say. Hopefully they'll say, well, sorry. But the fact here is that Nehemiah, with his authority, with his love, with his understanding of God's laws, was very persuasive. And they could not find this thing to say. So if they couldn't find a thing to say, what do you think they did? Kept on doing it? Let's look at verse 9. So I said, the thing that you are to do is not good. Ought you not walk in the fear of our God, to prevent the taunts of the nations, our enemies? Moreover, I and my brother and my sister are lending them money and grain. Let us abandon this exchanging of interest. So I wonder what the enemy thought when they saw this oppression of brothers and sisters. You think they said, yeah, that's right. Keep it up. That'll tear you apart. And that's what's mentioned here. This is another Nehemiah's act of saying, what do you think the nations are thinking about this? When people see what brothers and sisters are doing to one another. Now, does that ring true in our society today when people look at us? When we profess to be Christians? I'm not saying it's happening now, but you think it has ever happened in the lifespan of Christianity, of where two brothers and sisters go against each other and the world sees, hey, they're acting just like us. I thought they're supposed to be different. Sure it can, right? So the idea here is Nehemiah is using that to prick their hearts. Verse 11, this is the result that Nehemiah says. Return to them this very day their fields, their vineyards, their olive orchards, and their houses, and the percentage of money, grain, wine, and oil that you have exchanged for them. So, pretty simple, right? Just give it back. Now, I don't know because I haven't followed when a tornado hits, but does the government make them give back to everybody they stole? Or do they just give them a fine? My thinking is they just give them a fine, because I've never seen a sign on the gas station, if we took advantage of you, come back and we'll fill your tank up for free. Anybody ever seen that? Now, there have been lawsuits of other things that people get paid for because they work in a bad environment or whatever the case may be, but the idea here is you give it back. You give everything back that you oppress the people with. Yeah, remember Jesus talking to the little man up in a tree? Remember Zacchaeus? What did Zacchaeus tell Jesus that he would do? This very thing, right? In fact, he's going to go beyond what he took. So now he's saying, give back everything. Give it back. Is that going to make the work easier if they get everything back? Now again, financial gain is not the main purpose here. It's the idea of what they were doing to their brothers and their sisters. How they were looking at their brothers and sisters. So this is, and I talked about that earlier. Nehemiah came to do labor, but he also came back to restore the spiritual life of the Israelites. Because at this moment, the spiritual life of the Israelites were in need of major overhaul, because they were only concerned about their own selves. So Nehemiah says, give it back. Verse 12, this is their response to that. Then they said, we will restore these and require nothing from them. We will do as you say. And I called the priests and made them swear to do it as they promised. All right, so now, again, because of the leadership of Nehemiah, this sin that the enemy was using, there's no doubt about it. The enemy was using greed, wasn't he? Do y'all see that? Greed of brothers and sisters to cause turmoil. So now the work is going to thrive again. Taxes are going to get paid, grain is going to be given, families are going to be reunited again, and now they can start to work again. I also shook off the fold of my garment, said, this is verse 13, so may God shake out every man from his house and from his labor who does not keep this promise. So may be shaken out of and emptied. And all the assembly said, amen. And praise the Lord, and the people did as they had promised. So again, the outside looked like it was taken care of, then Satan worked on the inside, and now it looked like that was taken care of, right? So is the war over with, do you think? No, we know it's not. The job's not done yet. Now, look at verse 14. Moreover, this is, again, what Nehemiah did, his generosity. Moreover, when the time that I was appointed to be their governor in the land of Judah from the 20th year to the 32nd year of Artaxerxes the king, 12 years, neither did I nor my brothers eat the food allowed as a governor. The former governor who were before me laid heavy burdens on the people and took from them their daily rations. So now Nehemiah is just saying, what I should have been allotted, I didn't take. And he's going to show what he should have been given, but he didn't take. 40 shekels of silver, even their servants lorded it over the people, but I did not do so. So because of the fear of God, I was preserved in the work of this wall, and we required no land, and all my servants were gathered there for the work. Moreover, there were at my table 150 men, Jews and officials, beside those who came to us from the nations that were around us, so that there was prepared for in my expense for each day was an ox and 6 choice sheep and birds, and every 10 days all kinds of wine in abundance. Yet all of these I did not demand, the food allowed to the governor because the service was too heavy for this people. Remember for my good, O my God, all that I have done for the people. Again, just another clarification of Nehemiah was the man for the job, right? Do you think that the people knew what the governors took on their tables? You remember what King David had on his table? King Solomon had on his table? It was amazing. And now all the governors were also given, not that kind of spread at the kings, but they were given a spread. And we got a little bit of glance of that. And they demanded it. They had this seat of authority as a governor, and the former governors demanded it. But now Nehemiah, he is saying, I don't want it at all. Do you think that it made an impact on the people too? Do you think it made an impact on the people he was telling to give it back? If he would have kept all these things and said, you guys give it back, but I'm going to keep it, would that have went very far? It wouldn't have, would. So again, Nehemiah, no doubt, was the man for the job. His character, his love, his devotion, his understanding of the people was so amazing that had a lot to do with the turning of the tide of the children of Israel and what they were able to do. So now, it looks like that has been deterred. The people have got it together now, and they're going to go forward. But the battle that we left earlier of Sanballat and Tobiah has still not been fought yet. We haven't finished that yet. There's still that. The 10 reports of, we're coming, we're going to kill you. And then we had a short pause of, let's look and see what's going on with the people, and there's a problem. Let's take care of that. But now we're going to get back to this Sanballat and Tobiah war. Let's see what happens. Again, remember, they're fortified, right? The people are standing on around the wall. They're fortified. They're ready. Now when Sanballat and Tobiah and Geshem and the rest of the enemies heard that I had built the wall and there was no breach in it, although up to that time I had not set up the doors of the gates, Sanballat and Geshem sent to me, saying, come, let us meet together in the plain of Owen. But they intended to do me harm. So, what happened to the war? Did the war ever happen? What are they trying to do now? If the enemy comes and sees that they're prepared and they didn't, ridicule them didn't work, scaring them didn't work, so what's the next thing that a person is going to do? Do what? Take out the leader. Okay, that would be the taking. But if that didn't work, what's the next thing? Let's compromise. Okay, I see what's going on. Let's get together and let's compromise. And what does compromise usually mean? Is compromise ever, I'm going to do what I want completely, you're the one that's going to give up? What do both parties have to do? Both parties have to sacrifice something, right? In order to do what? Give and take. That's what compromise is. And did the children of Israel need to compromise any of God's laws? No. What happens if they compromise one? It all falls down, right? It would never work. So Satan does that today too, and we know that. But on this particular account, they're wanting to compromise because they can say, well, if we compromise with them and they let us come in and we're part of them, then they're not going to be whole. Let's see what Nehemiah has to say about that. And I sent a messenger to them saying, I am doing a great work. and I cannot come down. Why should the work stop while I leave it and come down to you? So the compromise, but also the threat, they're not done with trying to take his life yet. And they sent to me 4 times in this way, and I answered them in the same manner. In the same way, Sanballat, for the 5th time, sent his servant to me with an open letter in his hand. And this was in the letter. It is reported among the nations that Geshem also says it, that you and the Jews intend to rebel. And that is why you are building the wall. And according to these reports, you wish to become their king. And you have also set up prophets to proclaim concerning you in Jerusalem, there is a king in Judah. And now the king will hear of this report, and now come and let us take counsel together. Then I said to him, saying, no such thing as you are saying has been done, for you are inventing them out of your own mind, for they are wanting to fight, to frighten us, thinking their hand will drop from the work, and it will not be done. But now, O God, strengthen my hands. So again, coming at them over and over again. Stop the work. Ridicule doesn't work. Fear doesn't work. Then let's try to scare you again with, we're going to send letters to King Arphaxad that you're going to rebel. And the king wouldn't like that, because the Jews were still slaves to the Persian Empire. They were just letting them go to Jerusalem. So Sanballat is thinking, well, let's frighten them again. We're going to send this letter, and we're going to tell the king of Persia, you got to do something because they're going to put a king. And that's not the case at all, is it? Nehemiah says that's not the case. You're lying. You're making all this up. And what does Nehemiah do? He goes to God, and he asks for help. Because again, what would happen if King Arphaxad heard that Nehemiah was wanting to be king? Can there be a king of Jerusalem? No. Who was king of Jerusalem? King of Persia. So, could that weigh on Nehemiah's mind too? Possibly. We know it did, because what is he asking God for here? Last part of verse 9. He's asking for strength, isn't he? He's asking for strength that he might be able to go through this predicament. Because Sanballat and Tobiah are not letting up at all. They do not want them there. Verse 10, now when I went into the house of Shemaiah the son of Delaiah, who was confirmed to this house, he said, let us meet together in the house of God within the temple. Let us close the doors of the temple, for they are coming to kill you. So again, this is the response of some of Nehemiah's trusted advisors. What does it look like his advisors are doing? Are they scared? What does he tell them to do? Let's go hide. Let's go lock ourselves in the temple, because they want to kill you. There's nothing we can do. Let's give up. Let's go hide. Is that Nehemiah's character, to hide? Have we seen that at all? But again, this shows us the kind of atmosphere that's surrounding the people. They were scared. Sanballat and Tobiah had backing. They had the opportunity to write letters to the king. They had the opportunity to gather together an army. And now these people are scared. They are coming to kill you by night. But I said, again, this is Nehemiah. I love it. Why should a man as I run away? And what man should I do if I go into the temple and live? I will not go in. So, what does he say about himself here in verse 11? My translation says, should such a man as I run away? Does everybody say that, kind of? What such a man is he comparing himself to? a man that believes in God, right? He's saying, my character, my past, I have trusted in God. He says, I have always trusted in God from the very beginning. Did he have to trust in God when he came to the king of Persia the first time with a frown on his face? That was a big thing. He could have been killed immediately. Did he need to trust in God when he asked the king of Persia, let me go back to Jerusalem? Every step that Nehemiah has taken, he's had to trust in God. He has been a man who has trusted in God. And that's what he's referring to here. Why, as such a man as I have always trusted in God, why should I run and hide and live in the temple? And I understood, this is verse 12, and I understood and saw that God had not sent him, but he had pronounced the prophecy against me because Tobiah and Sanballat had hired him. Again, he saw through, didn't he? He knew exactly what was going on. Now, next week, we're going to start with verse 13, but Sanballat and Tobiah are not done yet. They're going to keep trying. But at this point, Nehemiah has stood fast, hasn't he? He stood fast because he's trusted in God to do that. And again, the example that we have to take away from this is that we have to have this kind of character too, to accomplish the work that God has put before us. All right, anybody have any comments about today? All right, let's all bow for a word of prayer and then we'll be dismissed. Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for giving us this opportunity this morning to come before your throne and to study about character, to study about being strong, and to understand how you will give that to your workers when we ask for it. Just be with us as we continue our service this morning. Just stand and we pray.